Yahoo! Welcome, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love, to Astro Fenixx, flying into the moment yet again and radiating love as always. And welcome to your weekly astrological forecast for the week starting July 1st through the 7th of 2019. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. I'm glad to be doing this video. I haven't done a weekly forecast in a while, and I wanted to kind of do something fun with it. So I have an interesting format that I'm going to be doing this with. Also, just as an announcement, I'm going to be running a sale on my website for these eclipses, so the link to that will be in the description below. And even tomorrow, I'm probably going to be doing a video for the eclipse itself, so I'll mention the sale again during that video. And I'll mention the eclipse during this weekly, but I wanted to go obviously more in depth into what this eclipse has to offer. But I still wanted to make a weekly video because I feel like this week we do have a powerful week going. Now, I don't think this is going to be necessarily the most intense week. I think it's going to be very subtle in its intensity and the power that it packs. And I don't think we're really going to realize it until we get that lunar eclipse, which I think that week is going to feel more powerful. But this week is certainly no slouch. So the format of this is that I'm going to start off with the short little segment where I talk about how electrifying this week is going to be, and I'll go through each day, give it a number on the scale of 1 to 7 on how electrifying the day will be, and then give you the overall. Then after that, I'll go into the segment where I talk a little bit day by day on what's happening on those days as far as the astrological transits go. And then at the end, I will draw an oracle card for each of the days and an overall card. And I probably will also roll my astrology dice here as well to give you an overall energy and feeling on what this week has to offer. So, without further ado, how electrifying is this week going to be? So, for Monday, we have out of 7, we have a 3.5, which is going to correlate with Pikachu. Yes, I'm going to use Pokemon for this segment because I can, and I think it's fun. Monday is going to be sort of this day where it is going to feel balanced. It's not a 1, it's not a 7, it's a 3.5, it's in the middle. So this is going to be the sort of in the middle kind of energy, almost like we're on a bridge between two platforms. On Tuesday, that energy is going to pretty much skyrocket up to a 6. It's going to be legendary. It's going to be Zapdos level legendary, but it's still going to be subtle. It's going to be interesting because this is, of course, the day of the total new moon solar eclipse in Cancer that will be occurring at 10 degrees. On Wednesday, the energy is going to actually increase a little bit more. I actually feel like Wednesday is going to be more intense than Tuesday simply because we're going to feel it more as the moon continues its transit throughout Cancer and it will enter into Leo. This is also the day that Venus will be entering into Cancer. So for Wednesday, we will get a 6.5 on the energy scale. On Thursday, the energy slacks off a bit, but it doesn't return to where it was at the beginning of the week. On Monday, we have a 4.5 for the 4th of July for those who are in the U.S. and celebrate. So it's going to be in the realm of Raichu, and it's going to be the sort of feeling where we're trying to become more accustomed and used to our newfound powers. On Friday, the energy actually slacks off. I think it's going to be the most chilled day of the week. A solid 3 Pikachu energy. And it's going to be kind of awkward as well because we're still having to get used to our newfound powers. On Saturday, the energy goes back up just a tad bit to a 3.5. So still within the realm of Pikachu, kind of reminiscent of Monday. But what's different about this day is that we pretty much have made our choice. And we no longer really feel like we're in the middle, but we may be questioning what choice we made. And on Sunday, the energy will be at a 4, solid Raichu energy, meaning that from the beginning of the week, we have fully evolved in whether or not we chose to or whether or not the universe, to put it bluntly, forced us to, which will give the overall energy of the week about a 4.4 out of 7. Certainly not a slouch of a week. The only reason why it might not be higher is because we do have some days, such as Friday and Monday, that aren't as really powerful, but still, even though this is not necessarily a 5 or a 6 out of 7 as the average, do not slouch on this week because this new moon solar eclipse in Cancer will indeed be very powerful and very life altering. So, for this next segment, I'm going to be talking about the days, each of them, and talking about some of the major transits that will be happening. So, what in the world is going on in the astrology this week? It's going to be a fun week. We have a new moon solar eclipse in Cancer at 10 degrees, but that's on Tuesday. What's happening the day before on Monday? Well, on Monday, the main things I wanted to focus on is the fact that we will have the moon finishing up its transits in Gemini, and it will actually be conjuncting Venus at 27 degrees. What's interesting is that there's going to be a focus on the Gemini energy, the Cancer energy, and the Leo energy this week, or at least on Monday. And this is what? Our thoughts, our emotions, our heart, our passions, and joy. So what's interesting is that, at the beginning of the day, there is going to be this sort of focus on our mind with Gemini. But it's not just really our mind and our thoughts, but it's also the mirrors in our life and our surroundings, our neighborhood. And with this conjunction of Venus at 27 degrees, there is going to be this sort of extra flavor of this Martian energy. Why? Because 2 plus 7 equals 9, and 9 in numerology is ruled by Mars. So there's going to be this sort of undertone of wanting to take action based off of how we feel about our relationships, because Venus does rule relationships, about our relationships, not only to ourselves, but to our romantic partner if we have them, or maybe a potential romantic partner if we may be, in the dating scene, of our coworkers, family too. Most importantly, I like to say ourselves. There's going to be this focus on how we treat the neighborhood and the community that is us and our body. So this moon in Gemini, conjuncting Venus at 27 degrees, this high degree of Gemini, we're going to be wanting to take action. Whether we actually take the action or not is really going to be up to us, and it's really going to be determined by the rest of the day. Because Mars is going to enter into Leo on this day, and the moon will be entering into Cancer. Mars will enter into Leo before the moon enters into Cancer, and I think that that's very, very, very critical. The reason why I think it's critical is because it's very interesting. Because, a lot of times we as humans, we exist up in our head. We exist in our thoughts, And while thoughts can help us to manifest our reality and all that sort of good stuff, the mind doesn't make for a great master. It's really about coming into our heart space. Nothing against Geminis or anything like that. But, sometimes we can kind of wig ourselves out if we're just existing in our head so much and not really getting into our heart space. So, but what's in between, Gemini and Leo? Cancer, our emotions. So what's interesting about this is that the reason why I feel that, this is a really key point to focus on is because we are in this sort of emotional dark age. Albeit, we are coming out of it. We're not necessarily at the depth of the darkness. We're now starting to come up and we're starting to see the light again. But we're still kind of in this emotional dark age. So in order for us to go from our thoughts to our heart, we have to go through our emotions. Our emotions are very, very important. But what happens? A lot of times we neglect our emotions, or we feel like we're not supposed to express our emotions. That's especially prevalent, amongst men, whatever like that, and males, how we're told to suppress our emotions. Like men aren't emotional, women are more emotional. But it's like this weird sort of narrative that we've been telling ourselves that simply isn't true, And here's the thing, though, about it. Cancer is cardinal water. So it's meant to move. It's meant to be action-oriented. It's not meant to just stay there like Scorpio. Like a Scorpio can hold a grudge like no one else, right? But Cancer is meant to move. It's meant to be a little more fluid, or at least definitely initiate some type of action. Pisces is mutable. It's all over the place. It's floaty, you know. So it's like a Pisces, like they may get hurt by something, but they can just float around or detach and go off into their fantasy world. Scorpio would like either like they can detach, but they're still holding on very much so psychologically. And Cancer really is about like if something is hurting you emotionally, they have this great power to act. So there's very much so this energy on Monday where it's like it's going to feel kind of like weird, only because we're going to feel like we're caught between these two worlds, the mind and our heart. And how in the world do we really coalesce these energies so we can move through it? We have to ask our emotions. And that's what's going to happen when the moon enters into Cancer. We really have to check in with our emotions and check in with how we're feeling. Because when we check in with how we're feeling, we may discover emotions that may have been stuck in our body for such a long time. Water is meant to be fluid, it's meant to move. Even if you have an enclosed space of water, like a lake or something like that, or a pond, that water can still move. The wind carries the water and it moves from bank to bank. So even a lake is not still. Even a lake is not still. The only thing that's really still as far as water would be, I guess you could say, ice, but even ice melts. You know, obviously you can see in our world based off of our pollution and shit and the breaking down of the ozone that the ice caps are melting. So it's like this intense energy with that scorpionic energy. And what's interesting too is like when you think about Scorpio, it in many ways kind of does rule the polar ice caps because these ice caps in many ways are the sort of boundary of our earth and this is protection energy. And Scorpio does rule that sort of protection energy. But what happens when that protection begins to break down? I think that's what's happening. So we're realizing that a lot of the emotional barriers that we have placed on ourselves to protect ourselves from moving forward emotionally are beginning to melt. And it's scaring a lot of people. It's scaring the fuck out of people. The other thing I will say about Monday is that Mars is entering into Leo, which is very, very important because this means that Mars is about to actually charge forward. We do have Mercury in Leo at the current moment, but by the end of the week, Mars will just like barely about to pass Mercury. Mercury will go retrograde by the end of the week and will essentially pass the baton off to Mars, which will be officially at that point pretty much leading the charge on all the planets. Now, if you want to look at it, you know, you can see leading the charge as like you want to look at its opposite sign of Aquarius and then see how many planets are pretty much within that zone behind, you know, Mars. The only planets that won't be behind it will be Jupiter, which will be retrograde, so not looking forward, but going backwards, in Sagittarius, Saturn, and Pluto, which are also going backwards and not moving forward in Capricorn. So Mars is going to be leading the charge. What's happening with this week and what you're going to feel when this Mars enters into Leo is that you're going to feel this spark of like, I can take lead in my life. I can take charge in my life. I can honor the way that I feel and act on my heart's deepest, truest wishes. That's Monday. And it sounds like when I frame it like that, it sounds rather intense, right? Because it's like we really are going to be kind of in this in-between world, or whether or not we're really going to trust our heart, or whether we're really going to honor our deepest wishes. That's Monday. Moving into Tuesday, the moon is going to square over to Chiron, and it's going to sextile Uranus, both at 5 degrees. This is before we hit the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer later in the day. So by the time that we really wake up Tuesday, the moon would have already made these aspects. And this is really important because now with the moon being in Cancer, its home sign, that square to Chiron is going to be interesting because it's going to be this sort of energy where we're going to kind of come in conflict with, you know, maybe there have been times in the past where we try to express who we are or express our character and it may not have been received very well. So then what happens? We take a step back because maybe people might have perceived that energy to be rather too intense or not really coalescing or really augmenting with the reality that they want to have. This really goes back to it being really important on, it's going to be really important on how you structure your day-to-day reality, but also just realizing that, we are all unique beings. Chiron and Aries is this energy where it's like we really are healing the self at a great, great capacity. And we're going to simultaneously heal the collective at a great, great, great capacity. But we have to remember that in order to really heal the self and heal the collective, we have to work on ourselves. And we have to honor our emotions. So, and not only that, but the sextile to Uranus, which Uranus considers the collective. It rules Aquarius, right? So, but it's in Taurus. So this is like, we really have to be honest with ourselves about what we really value as a collective. But the only way we're really going to know that is if we begin to value the collective of our body. I like to think of Taurus in many ways as the body. And our body is a combination of trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. It's a community. It really is a community. And it's going to be about, how we value that community, and how we feel about that. So it's like, even if you might not necessarily feel the greatest, and I don't think anyone's really going to be feeling perfect, I don't think really anyone's going to be feeling like they're just like the scum of the earth. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be feeling that. We're all going to be kind of like somewhere in between those crazy polar opposites, right? And this is going to be an interesting energy because we're really going to have to be honest with ourselves about the challenges of overcoming our past, overcoming the expression of who we are, overcoming the sphere of expressing our authenticity and expressing our truth, but also working towards building something. Because here, Taurus is about building things, and Aquarius is about the future. Uranus is about the future, right? So it's like we really are wanting to build a better future. That's what Uranus in Taurus is building a better future. Whether it's, and this is not necessarily, and it is Taurus, so this is like a physical thing, but this is also about building better habits, building better, mentalities, building just a better way of feeling about ourselves, better value systems. So it's like better ways of coping with our emotions too, and processing our emotions. This is all before the eclipse. So it's going to be an intense day. I swear to Chiron, people are going to be feeling like, maybe doubting themselves, but then the sextile Uranus is like, look towards the future and what you can possibly build, and where you can possibly go. And with it being at 5 degrees, 5 in numerology is Mercury. So there's definitely going to be this focus on the mind, like an undertone in many ways. I'll say undertone, or like a flavor of the mind, our mental capacity, and like, they say thoughts create your reality, but like I could think of a pink elephant, and there's not really a pink elephant in this room, or at least not perceivably in this reality. There probably actually is a pink elephant in this room, but it may not necessarily manifest immediately. So this energy going into this eclipse is going to test our ability to be like, you know what? If you think very positive, self-affirmative thoughts, and they don't show up immediately, if they don't necessarily manifest immediately, do you have the ability to see it through anyways? Do you have the ability to keep going and to really develop those daily qualities that's going to help you to manifest your dream life? Because it's not meant to be a dream. It's meant to be experienced. It's meant to be experienced in its fullness. That's really what this is about. Then, of course, you get the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer at 10 degrees. Very powerful. It's a total eclipse. And, of course, we have, the North Node in Cancer at 17 degrees. And it's going to be opposing this energy in Capricorn, where we have Saturn, South Node, Pluto. And new moons are about planting seeds in many ways. And it does bring about, new moons, and interesting enough, do bring about a sort of end and a beginning at the same time. I know a lot of times people think that new moons bring beginnings and full moons bring endings. But honestly, they kind of do both. They simultaneously do both. full moons can bring beginnings just as much as new moons can. But what's different is that full moons is that you kind of feel the intensity of it more, whether you're starting something new or you're ending something. And we got to remember that if a new moon is a new beginning, it's coming right after an end. So they do actually, you can't really have one without the other. This is going to be this, especially with these eclipses, this is going to be a new way of feeling about ourselves. And you got to remember, this is going to be the first time that we've had a new moon, solar eclipse, in Cancer with the North Node here in about what? It's been like 18 or so years, right? It's been a long time since we've had this. And just think about 18 years ago. Where were you in your life? This was what, the 2000s going into 2001? I think at least here in America, and of course other people in the world were paying attention too. We all kind of know what happened around that time. It was an intense time, you know, going into a whole new millennium, you know, because before that you had the whole Y2K thing. Oh my gosh, the world's going to end. Oh my gosh, planes are going to be falling out of the sky and satellites are going to be crashing to the earth. Didn't happen. But then, of course, followed by this tragedy that happened. And then all these emotions got riled up. But now, 18 years later, we get this eclipse in Cancer. Things have changed since then, obviously. People have changed. And our understanding of emotions has certainly changed. Because, I mean, if you really look at it, it's like there wasn't really anyone really talking too much about shadow work then. People were, but it wasn't as prevalent. People weren't talking about shadow work. You didn't really hear people talking about, you know, and I don't even like using these words, but I'm going to use them. You didn't hear people talking about narcissism or codependency or toxic behavior, you know. People weren't really expressing their emotions like that. But now, it's become far more prevalent. So this new moon is really going to bring about this shift and change in our relationship to our emotions. And what I feel is going to be a very positive way. I hope. I really hope. I feel like it's going to be very positive, but I do feel like we are going to kind of go through this buffer period where we have to, like, you know, begin to step into this new world. And Cancer is what? It's cardinal water. So how we use our emotions to initiate and act on things. Not just kind of waiting for things to happen. But like, if we feel joy, or if we feel happy, or if we feel excited, this new moon is going to be like wanting us to like, all right, act on it. Go for it. Change your life. Boom. You know? The opposite is going to be true as well. Maybe we're going to be feeling upset, depressed, stressed out, these sort of quote-unquote negative emotions or really lower vibrational emotions. People are going to be acting on those as well. So you got to be careful, you know. And it's going to be really a moment where it's like the best way to help these individuals is to uplift your own energy. It's going to be uplift your own energy. And that in many ways is kind of even going back to what's happening earlier in the day with Moon squaring Chiron and sextiling Uranus, where it's like we have to have the strength with that Moon square Chiron to acknowledge how we really feel and to overcome it. You know, if we feel like it may be holding us back, but to overcome and move forward in a very powerful way. And then with that sextile to Uranus, it's almost going to be like we're going to be helping the collective by acknowledging the value that we see in ourselves and the value that we see in our journey and our overcoming of these issues. So it's like the best way to really help other people is to help yourself. That's Tuesday. Wednesday, the energy is going to go up even more because I feel like this new moon is actually going to be very subtle. It's going to be happening in the evening, at least here in the West, you know, here in the Americas. It's going to be happening towards the evening. So, you know, we're really going to kind of be going to sleep on this energy, kind of literally. But, you know, it's really going to be sort of like, it's going to be a lot more potent. Wednesday, the energy is actually going to kind of just turn up just a little bit. But since the moon's going to be transiting these latter degrees of Cancer, we're going to feel it more. We're going to feel it more. It's going to conjunct the North Node and oppose the South Node and Saturn retrograde at 17 degrees. So the North Node's going to be in Cancer at 17 degrees. Saturn and the North and the South Node are together at 17 degrees of Capricorn. The moon is going to conjunct Jupiter retrograde at 16 degrees before that happens. It's going to trine Neptune retrograde at 18 degrees. It's going to oppose Pluto at 22 degrees. So the moon's going to be making a lot of these aspects, and they're not necessarily going to be easy. The only one that's really going to be kind of like, feeling like we're going to like feel more is probably going to be, or like that's going to be seemingly more positive, is going to be that trine to Neptune. But Neptune is retrograde, and you got to understand that Neptune retrograde is more or less kind of like Virgo, because Neptune retrograde, Neptune is not asleep when it's going backwards. But Neptune's going forward, it's asleep, it's in the dream world, it's lucid most of the time, and it's like often fairy world. When Neptune is retrograde, Neptune is wide awake, trying to make those dreams a reality, like for real, like make them actually a reality. So it's like, even though we want to get that trine to Neptune in the midst of all these energies, in the midst of the conjunction to the North Node, in the midst of the conjunction to Jupiter retrograde, and opposing Pluto, that trine to Neptune it's going to be harmonious. I believe that trines bring miracles, but at the same time, since Neptune is retrograde, it's like we're going to have to like almost work harder at feeling the dream, feeling that what we have in our life can really be that dream life that we want to manifest and want to create. It's not going to be a day where it's going to be like, oh, it's like you go to sleep and it's like you just kind of imagine everything the way it is and it's all fine and dandy, whatever like that. It's like you can do that, but then you're gonna wake up into reality and be like, God, this doesn't really fit the dream that I just had. So it may feel almost a little disappointing. But really what this is teaching us is that, we are being given this opportunity to not only really appreciate where we are, because I think gratitude is going to be a very, very important thing this week. And gratitude is one of really my core tenets that I really have in my life and follow, is gratitude. And you have to understand also on this day, Venus is going to be entering into Cancer and the moon is going to enter into Leo. So we're going to get another shifting energy with Venus coming into Cancer, though. So there's going to be a focus, once again, value-wise on our emotions and how we value our emotions. And then the moon is going to enter into Leo, which is going to be this focus on our heart. So it's going to be like, when it comes to this valuing of our emotions, what value do you place on feeling good? What value do you place on feeling bad? And here's the thing about this. It's not necessarily that you want to place a lower value on feeling bad about something. The feelings are really just an indication of your vibration and your frequency and where you're at. So there have been moments where I can look back on times where I felt bad and I place high value on those things because they oftentimes teach you these deeper, greater lessons of life. When you're struggling and you're not necessarily feeling good, but a lot of times, like in the moment, it's hard to place value on these things and on these emotions and on these feelings. But when you look back at them, you're like, no, that moment really taught me something. It's oftentimes where the positive emotions are a lot more subtle. So it's like you want to give a greater value to those more subtle moments. If you're feeling joyous, if you're feeling happy, if you're feeling like just really in your element, you want to give those moments greater value. The Venus coming into Cancer, and of course with the moon coming into Leo, there's going to be this feeling like, it's like we really want to feel that joy. We really want to feel this passion. We really want to feel that heat, that creative force. We want to feel the love. Can you feel it? Can you feel the love? Nothing feels better than feeling the love. Another interesting thing about Wednesday is that the moon is actually going to make a conjunction to the asteroid Nemesis at 25 degrees of Cancer. there may be a potential where people, especially with Venus entering in a Cancer that day, there may be a potential where people may make other people out to be their enemy when they really aren't, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. And I will say family because it's in the house, it's in the, you know, it's in the space Cancer and of a family. But there's going to be this feeling of like where we may make people out, we may make other people out to be like our enemy, and really they're not. They're not our enemy. They're just they are experiencing this life through a particular set of lens that we don't possess at this moment in time. I actually have this weird belief. I have this weird. I don't know if it's really a belief or was more of a theory. Probably more of a theory. But I have like this weird theory that we can choose incarnations, and what will happen is that we'll literally experience that incarnation exactly the way that it's supposed to be, but it's actually going to teach our soul and our spirit something very, very important. So, for example, say that you have like a best friend, whatever like that, and say, you die. At the end of your life, you live a long life, you die. I believe that it's possible for your spirit to actually incarnate, quote unquote, your best friend and live out the experience that your best friend had, but you will actually be that person. You wouldn't know that you were the other person, but then at the end of your life, you'd be like, oh, wow. So that'd be kind of interesting how you can actually live someone else's perspective, but then you don't really get the feedback of it and the understanding and the truth of it until after you die, and then you go into the next life, whatever like that. So, like for example, just to kind of bring it forward, there is a chance where I could have been my partner in a quote unquote past life. But then it could be also the potential where she could have been me in a past life. But now we flipped, to get each other's perspective. It's kind of a weird thing, right? So I think, like, honestly, even though this is more of a theory, I feel like that's actually a way of developing deeper empathy. Because it's like that whole saying where it's like, oh, if I was you, I would do this, or I'd do something different. It's like, no, if I were you, I would do exactly what you're doing. I would do exactly what you're doing. So it's like we can look at people that we don't necessarily agree with, and it's like, a lot of people may be like, if I was Trump or if I was someone else, so and so, I would have done it different. I'm like, no, you would have done it exactly the same way. And there's actually a potential where you might have lived that particular incarnation to give your spirit and soul information and some sort of evolution to move on to the next level, whatever like that. That's an interesting theory that I've kind of been feeling it for a while anyways, just wondering if that's possible. Like there's potential where like some of you could have, your most recent incarnation could have been your parents. Like you could have lived the life that your parent is living. Which is weird because then it's almost like you could be living different, you can almost be kind of experiencing different lives simultaneously. It's very weird, if you think about it that way. But anyways, let's continue on with it. Anyways, I feel like Wednesday is going to be a day where it's like, since the moon's going to be in these latter degrees of Cancer, it'll move into Leo. Venus is going to come into Cancer, coming off of this new moon solar eclipse, which will be total, by the way. It's going to be a very powerful day. We're going to feel it more. That's why I feel like the energy level is going to go up just that little bit. On Thursday, the energy is going to kind of come up a little bit. It's still going to be interesting. It's actually going to be like, it's going to be sort of reminiscent of Monday, where it's going to be like this split. But instead of the split being more on the individual level, I feel like the split on Thursday is going to be more on the collective level. And here, of course, in the United States, there's going to be July 4th, so people are going to be shooting out fireworks and talking about how great America is, blah, 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 blah. I feel like there's going to be this sort of split on this day that's going to be more expressed on like people who think that America is great and people who don't think that America is great. Or was it ever great, whatever like that. And this is what happened, I feel like, really all over the world. So it's like, it's not necessarily, That's just the example that I'm using, of course, because it's going to be July 4th here and I live in America. But like, that's going to be sort of the feeling in a lot of different places where, particular within the collective, certain people are going to be feeling this way about how things are going, and certain people are going to be feeling this way about how things are going. It's not really going to be sort of like this individual feeling that we're being on a bridge. It's going to be more like a collective. So the moon is going to conjunct Mars at 1 degree. Saturn is actually going to finally conjunct or come into its exact conjunction with South Node and oppose the North Node at 17 degrees. The moon will conjunct Mercury on this day, as well as making a trine over to Chiron, squaring Uranus, and it actually will make a conjunction over to Juno. Juno is also in Leo right now at 5 degrees. So I think there's going to be certainly some positivity to this day. I think there's going to be this sort of feeling almost too, where with the moon trine to Chiron, this does bring miracle and healing. And Chiron is the wounded healer, as we call it, being in Aries. It really does have to do with the persona. But you have to also remember, Aries is also about war. So there's going to be this sort of feeling where it's like, there are going to be some people that there's not really a way to put this lightly. There's going to be some people that are still feeling the effects of a lot of these wars that we've had. I think we're all feeling the effects of them. But some people are going to be feeling more hurt and more traumatized over these wars that we've had inflicted on each other as humanity. Some people are going to be feeling like, oh yeah, we won! We won! Yes! Some people are going to be like, damn it, we got fucked over. And that's going to be that sort of energy. And with the square to Uranus, Uranus is about the collective in many ways in humanity. Uranus is in Taurus. This is really about, well, it's like, wow, yeah, we might have had Team A versus Team B. Team A won, so naturally they feel good. Team B lost, so naturally they feel bad. But how does that translate to the entirety of the collective and the entirety of humanity? Where is the future in that? If Team A wins and Team B loses, is there a future in continuing this sort of not that you don't want to be proud of your victories, but if it comes at the cost of hurting other people to this extent where you really are taking away from them, taking away in many ways from like their ability to experience true joy in this world, is it really a victory? And I think that's really what's happening with Thursday is like, at least here in America, we may be celebrating independence, or we may be celebrating greatness or victory, but it's like, is that victory as sweet as we want it to be? And I think everyone's going to be feeling this on like a personal level, but also like a collective level. We're going to be looking at the world as like, yeah, we have some victories, with this, the square to Uranus, there's some challenges we have to overcome, but there are some victories. Yeah, we have the internet. We're very much so connected. It's like we have all this great technology and all this sort of stuff. It's like, a lot of the world is still in poverty, but at the same time, a lot of people, like, at least, like, in certain parts of the world, like, the average person can actually, like, have food every day, which is a blessing. It's such a huge thing to be grateful for. But at the same time, with all of these advancements in our society, how sweet is it? Are we benefiting only a select group of people? Are we benefiting all? And I think that's really what Thursday is. It's going to be sort of like this bittersweet moment where it's going to be like, yeah, we have some wins, but it may have came at the cost of kind of stepping on some toes. And not stepping on some toes in sort of like a friendly pickup game of basketball or football or whatever sport you want to play. But in like a, damn, like my mom and my dad died in this war. Like my ancestors are reeling from this. And I'm just like, just painting the picture metaphorically for you all. It's not, there's going to be this feeling where some people are going to be looking at this aspect from this whole idea of, oh, it's just a friendly pickup game of whatever sport, enter what sport. Some people are going to be looking at it as like, no, I lost like a lot of people and a lot of blood was shed. And it's going to be like, how sweet is that victory? You know, how sweet is it? Especially if you look at the earth and stuff like that, it's like we have been gifted. I really thought it's a gift, but we have been gifted and we have such a beautiful, beautiful earth, and we are fucking her royally in the ass. Like, to put it bluntly. Like, I know some of y'all might think that that's crazy that I'll say it like that and that just like kind of graphic, but maybe we kind of are. And even while as I'm saying this, I'm like, what can I do? How can I do my part to help heal this planet? And I really feel like, Thursday's going to be this day where it's like, how sweet is that victory, and what can you do to help heal the planet? I feel like that's really kind of this big focus on Thursday. On Friday, it's probably going to be what I feel like is the most chill day of the week, but it's going to still be a little awkward. The moon's going to trine over to Jupiter at 16 degrees. We do have the moon quincunxing Neptune at 18 degrees as well as quincunxing Saturn and the North Node and Pluto at 22 degrees. So we do get that trine at the beginning of the day. So it's like we're going to kind of wake up from, Thursday, kind of feeling like, we can move forward in a new direction, going on this new adventure. But Jupiter is retrograde. So it's like we're not necessarily going on a new adventure, but we're kind of like feeling out where we've been and the adventures that we've had. And then we get the quincunx Neptune retrograde. Then we get the quincunx the Saturn retrograde first in the North Node, and then we get the quincunx to Neptune retrograde. Then we get the quincunx to Pluto retrograde. So it's like all the aspects that the moon makes are to retrograde planets. So it's like we're really are going to be focusing more or less on the past and what happened before, and we're really trying to figure out, what can we do about it? How can we feel better about it? What sort of actions can we take to create a better system for the world and for the collective? But I do feel like Friday's going to be probably one of the more chill days simply because quincunxes, you feel them. They're like a semi-major aspect, but they're what I call the awkward stare from across the room. So they can be powerful if you do something to acknowledge the awkwardness and remedy it, but otherwise, if you don't do anything about it, if you don't act on it, then everything just kind of stays stagnant. And then that's when it just feels kind of weird and complacent. On Saturday, we have the moon shifting into Virgo. And when it does this, it's going to sextile over to Venus in Cancer at 3 degrees. It's going to quincunx Chiron at 5 degrees and square Uranus at 6 degrees. Saturday, the energy kind of goes up a little bit more. The moon in Virgo is going to bring this more of this attention to our day-to-day reality, our health, into a lot of the finer details in many ways of our life. And the sun is actually going to start to it's going to get closer and closer to the North Node. So it's within a 3-degree orb of the North Node on Saturday. So, the energy level, the intensity is going to kind of go up a little bit. The moon's going to shift, so we're going to definitely be feeling that. You want to look to see where Virgo is in your houses. And really, I do feel like it's going to be actually, I don't know why I put square to Uranus, because it's actually going to be a trine. Because Uranus is a Taurus and it's an Earth sign. So we're getting the sextile, the quincunx, and the trine. In my notes, I wrote square, but it's supposed to be a trine. So by the end of the day, we may start to feel better about, our direction, our day-to-day reality, and where we may be seeing humanity as a collective moving forward. And not just humanity, but just the collective and the collective of all the species here on this planet with that trine. So I think today is going to bring about this healing energy, but at the same time, with the quincunx of Chiron, we're going to be having, like I said, this awkward stare from across the room with the wounded healer Chiron, which does rule Virgo, by the way. I believe that Virgo is pretty much ruled by a bunch of asteroids. So it's like Virgo's trying to put things back together and clean things up. So Chiron is one of the major players in the Virgo energy. And with that quincunx of Chiron, we're going to be kind of awkwardly looking at this area in our chart, the Aries energy, the beginning, degrees of it. And we're going to be kind of like, it's going to be sort of like, are we going to ego check ourselves? Are we going to be honest about how we may have overstepped our boundaries because of, what I would like to say the lower vibrational aspect of the ego, because a lot of times people like to just bash the ego, and we really shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't really bash any of these modalities or states of consciousness, the 12 signs. We shouldn't bash the ego. We shouldn't bash the mind. We shouldn't bash our emotions. We shouldn't bash any of these areas. All of them have higher vibrational aspects and lower vibrational aspects. But with its quincunx over to Chiron, we're going to be looking at our not so shiny aspects of this energy, and be like, we're kind of clean up here a bit. But the question is, will we? Because with the quincunx, and what I like about that actually, anyways, I'm just gonna this is what a quincunx, this is what the glyph looks like, by the way. I think it's an interesting glyph. So this is what the quincunx glyph is, and the way that I like to see it almost is that like you have this line here, right? But then you have like these two diagonal lines coming to it. So really what I feel like with the quincunx is like, really what you want to do is that honestly, it's like a star. But what's happening is that we're like walking along this road, and then we get to this point, which is sort of like this horizon line. And then it's like we have a choice. We can either go this way, or we can go this way. And this is what makes it so awkward, because it's like both ways seem equal, and don't get it twisted. Both of these paths could end up leading back to the same point. They could. But we don't really know what the experiences that are going to be along this path, what it's going to yield. Same goes for this. But the thing about it is that this quincunx is like, it really is a sort of a crossroads in many ways. I mean, it's not, I mean, of course you also have like grand crosses, which are obvious crossroads, but this is like a cross where it's like you have one or two options on which way to go. It very much so kind of has Two of Wands kind of energy, in the sense that, like, you know, when I call it the awkward thread from across the room, it's like you arrive at this point, it's like, oh, I can go this way or this way. And it's like, what makes it awkward is staying there for such a long time and not making a decision. A lot of times what happens is that people will stay on this line, and instead of moving forward, whether they go this way or that way, they straddle this line back and forth. And then instead of making a forward move, they're making lateral moves. So it's like instead of moving up, they're going from side to side. You know, they're going from side to side. So they're not really moving forward. Think of it as like, say like, I'm going to use a sport analogy because I don't know any better. Say like you're playing football and you have the running back with the ball, and instead of going up the field, he's just going side to side, trying to avoid people that are trying to tackle him, you know, the defense. You know, it's like, you can go side to side for such a long time, and sometimes you will get an opening and you can get further upfield, but sometimes it's best to, instead of wasting the time straddling back and forth, sometimes it's better to just take that 4 yards or to take that 5 yards. Who knows, maybe you'll get a first down, maybe you'll break some tackles. But I think sometimes what happens is that when we straddle back and forth, we're trying to like almost like play out our options, and we don't want to act. And sometimes, honestly, most of the time, you're not going to break a 20 or 30 yard run or get a touchdown. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can break it. But most of the time, you're not going to break it. And you're almost better off just making a decision. You know? And how do you make a decision in those moments? Listen to your heart. If you don't really know if you're listening to your heart or not, listen to your emotions. How do you feel? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel not so good about it? Then that kind of lets you know, in many ways, where your heart's kind of aligning with it. So that's going to be kind of interesting with that Saturday energy, because it's going to be like, you know, I feel like it's going to be a very positive day, and that it can bring some gifts and some miracles. But it's going to be like, are we going to be just straddling back and forth? Or are we actually going to start to advance our character, you know, make a decision and stuff like that? And I think with the quincunx, since, you know, I think both paths are viable paths, because one's not longer than the other, you know. I don't think necessarily one's better than the other. I think they just yield different experiences. On Sunday, Mercury goes retrograde, but before Mercury does that, the moon is going to sextile the sun, square Jupiter, trine Saturn and the north node, the south node, sextile the north node, oppose Neptune, trine Pluto. What does all this mean? What does all this mean? It really, and also Venus is going to begin to square Chiron exactly. So there's already going to be this building pressure with Venus in Cancer, making the square over to Chiron. There's going to be this building pressure of how we value our emotions and how that relates to our character and how we act on things and how we initiate things and whether or not we're going to allow the past to really affect how we move in this present moment and therefore how that translates into the future. But Mercury is going to station retrograde on Sunday. We are in retrograde state. We have a lot of retrograde energies. We have Jupiter retrograde, we have Pluto retrograde, we have Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and Neptune. By the end of the week, Mercury is going to join it. Coming in the next week, Chiron is going to join it. So we have to understand, 6 energies retrograde, pretty much half of our consciousness is going to be looking backwards. And not necessarily in a bad way, but just like, because it's really from our perception that they're moving backwards, right? They're not really looking backwards, it's just our perception. So it's like, but 6 aspects of our consciousness, like, although Chiron going retrograde is more of a, is it Chiron's going retrograde, or is it, I want to say it's Chiron's going retrograde. Let me just look at this real fast. Yeah, Chiron's going to be going retrograde on the 8th. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna talk more about that, in next week's weekly transit video. But, this is this huge moment where we are gonna kind of feel like we're in between worlds. But at the same time, it's this moment where it's like we can really begin to move forward. It's like, even though we may feel like we may be moving backwards in a sense, this is really a great evolution point. And I think this is going to be a week of, where gratitude is going to be very important, but also having the humility to admit to not only where we are right now and to, maybe the quote unquote mistakes we may have made in the past, but also just have the humility and the willingness to admit how strong we are for having made it to this point. If you're watching this video, you've made it to this point, and like, that's just amazing. That's incredible. We've gone through so much this year. I didn't even talk about how the fact that, this Mars going into Leo is a really, really big deal, because Mars has been through hell. Mars has been through hell, and like, even when Mars was in Aries, which I'll probably make a whole video on this in general, but I'll touch on it real quick here at the end. When Mars was in its home sign of Aries, like, it felt good there, but it also had a lot weighing on it, because before it even went into Aries, it conjuncted Chiron at the edge of Pisces. So it was like, oh yeah, you're about to go on this new adventure, start to initiate things, start to act new, and start to make all these cool new resolutions, whatever like that. But you remember when this happened along your spiritual journey, and now you haven't quite healed from it yet? Mars had to go through that before it went to Aries. I was like, well, fuck. This, and this did happen on my spiritual journey. How is that going to affect the way that I act? And then, Mars was moseying along, like that, and so it started to kind of, not forget about it, but it started to, like, not care as much. Then Mars hit Uranus at the end of Aries. And it's like, oh, so it's like, you have to consider how your actions affect humanity in a collective. By the way, Mars going into Leo, with the exception, of course, Mars conjuncting Mercury, because by the end of the week, Mars is technically going to conjunct Mercury as it's retrograding backwards. But after that, Mars is going to be pretty much leading the pack. So it's like, and Mars yeah, it rules war, but I also like to think of it as a sort of heroic energy, especially in its exalted state. And I'm not necessarily talking about being Capricorn, but I'm just saying like Mars energy in general. It's sort of like this. It is the hero in many ways. It is the warrior. So it's like, are you going to be a warrior for your heart? And there's going to be this in many ways where it's going to feel like, there's this sort of like narrative I've noticed being pushed within the spiritual community, which I don't necessarily think I'm really a part of the spiritual community. 'Cause I don't really want to put myself in that box, but it's just a sort of narrative I've noticed within spirituality, New Age metaphysics, and all that sort of stuff. Is that like, you know, when it comes to like manifesting what you really want to do in your life and your heart's desires, that it comes easy and it's fluffy and there's not you don't really have to fight for it, that it just kind of comes, and that honestly has an element of truth to it, but you do have to fight for it. You in many ways do have to fight for your heart, and I feel like with this Mars coming into Leo outside of the eclipse, I think that's probably the most powerful thing, because you know yeah, it's going to make the conjunction to Mercury, which is retrograde in Leo, by the time that Mars happens. But that's at the beginning. And after that, it's going to be all like, what does your heart want? What does your heart want? What does your heart want? Are you willing to fight for that? Are you willing to fight for that? Are you willing to be a champion for that? So it's like, this is going to be one of those weeks where you're going to feel this major shift, and it's going to be like, are you willing to fight for your heart? Are you willing to fight for your joy and your passion? And it's crazy because, like, sometimes people feel like I shouldn't have to fight for these things. I shouldn't have to fight for love. Kidding me? Like, people are fighting for love every single day. Like, it's just crazy. Like, you can see, like, the like, just for like example, like people have been fighting to love who they want to love every single day. It's like I'm like for me personally, like I'm part of an interracial couple, whatever like that. I don't even really see race like that. Like honestly, like when it's just me and her, really, when it's just me and her, it melts away. Like the whole idea that I'm black and she's white melts away. And like even when we're out, it's not really as prevalent, but it's more prevalent. But when it's just me and her, it melts away. It just melts away. And it's incredible how that happens. But, you know, and I'm grateful that in 2019 that it's not as frowned upon. We still get looks. But imagine 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Oh God, I would have been hanged. I would have been lynched. And it actually happens nowadays too. So it hasn't necessarily gone away. It's more accepted, but we have had to fight for love. Like we have had to fight for love and to be champions of love. We've had to do this, and there's a sort of feeling where it's like you don't necessarily have to fight for it. You have to just feel it and just love what you love. Oh, it's like you have to fight for it. So it's like I don't like. Do not be complacent, my brothers and sisters. Do not feel like it's just going to come automatically, or feel like you just have to oh, if you just meditate on it, and, you just you just put the intention out there to do it. And, like I'm not knocking meditation. I'm not knocking any of that sort of stuff. I really am not. But you don't necessarily want to just be like, oh, well, if I just pray about it and pray about it and pray about it, it's gonna happen. No, you want to take some action, damn it. Like you want to take some fucking action. Like look at the LGBT community, whatever like that, They've had to fight for love. People have to fight for love. People have to fight for love. You have to fight for it, you know? It happens where, maybe a kid wants to do one thing, but their family doesn't want them to do that. They want them to do another thing. And it's like they have to fight for what they believe in. They have to fight for their heart. Mars, by the into next week, is going to start to lead the charge. And the rest of this year, really, we're going into July, so we're really halfway through this year. It's really going to be determined by, it's like the people that really go far in advance this year are going to be the people that really champion the heart's cause, that champion their joy, that champion their passion, that champion love, and what they really want. Like Mars is not going to lead the pack the entire year, But at this midpoint, especially around like on the week of this eclipse, especially in the eclipse season in between these eclipses, because we still have a lunar eclipse, this is very fucking important. It's very fucking important. So this is gonna be this week where it's like, you know, you want to take some sort of action towards, you know, what you love and what you believe to be true. We're going to draw cards for the 12 signs. I hope that you all enjoyed this so far. I hope you got some type of, you know, some type of value out of this. You know, whether you resonate with all parts of it or not. You know, I hope that you got something out of this. So I'm going to draw all of the cards, and then I'm going to draw the overall card and just kind of run through them. And, yeah, let's see what we got there. So that's the overall card. 5, 6, 7.
Hello, my beautiful brothers and sisters, and this is the portion that I'm having to re-record of the weekly. I'm not gonna lie, when that happened last night, I let it throw my whole energy off and pretty much carried that energy through the day. But, you know, essentially my computer ran into an issue, and then for some reason the entire, like, picture feed was able to be salvaged, but not all the audio was salvaged. But the audio and the picture were so off that I was like, you know, there's nothing really I can do to salvage it. So I decided to just keep essentially all the audio that did record. And, you know, you got that nice cool stargazing background. So, but I'm going to just go ahead and reshuffle the cards because I did it yesterday and I even had the cards here, but I'm going to just go ahead and reshuffle. Essentially, I was just going to draw a card for each day of the week and then have an overall card. And then I was going to roll my astrology dice, which I'm going to roll them again because, you know, there has to be a reason for everything, right? So it's like, you know, sometimes in life we are presented with these issues. And, you know, we just have to do our best to move forward. And, you know, it's like, you know, admittedly, I let what happened last night to really throw me off. And it kind of threw the whole day off and kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. But, you know, such is life. These things happen. Sometimes we let things get the best of us. And, like, I was aware. Like, that's an interesting thing. When I'm, like, very aware when, like, I am, like, purposely, like, putting myself in a bad mood. It's like, I was like, oh no, I know I'm doing this to myself. But, you know, like I said, it is what it is. And I still believe that's going to be a very powerful, beautiful, and amazing week. And we are going into this eclipse. Woohoo! So, I do want to make a video about the eclipse. The eclipse is going to apex tomorrow in the afternoon, so like 4 or so in the afternoon. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to make a short video on it, just giving you just, you know, just my channeling and my feel about what this eclipse is going to do. But I probably also will go live as well. So I don't know if I'm going to do them together or if I'm going to make like a short, maybe 10, 15, 20-minute video about the eclipse itself and do like a live video later on. Or it may just go live in the morning, who knows. But in any event, let's draw cards for each day of the week and then get an overall card. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then their overall card. So it's obvious. So it's going to be interesting to see how this changes. And I'm going to go ahead and actually do my astrology dice. Shake it up. Shake it up. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Interesting how this is shaping up. All right. So, first card of the day. So, for Monday, we had the card of romantic love. I'm going to run through all these and then I'm going to just kind of go back. So, for Monday, we got romantic love. And then, for Tuesday, we have the card of cosmic flower, which I think really does fit the theme, being that it is an eclipse. For Wednesday, we have the card of empowerment. For Thursday, we have the card of the solar plexus chakra. Okay. For Friday, we have the card of belief. Card of belief. for Saturday, we have the throat chakra. And then we have on Sunday, realization. And the overall card is the sacral chakra. This kind of is reminiscent of the cards that I drew yesterday, but obviously it is a little bit different. But like I said, everything does happen for a reason, so there's probably a reason why, the video went the way that it did, and I wasn't able to upload it last night. So for Monday, we do have the card of romantic love. It states the frequency of romantic love supports our journey to feel whole and complete through the experience with and the reflection of a conscious lover. So on Monday, there's going to be some focus on whether you are partnered or not, a focus on this romantic love. For me, I'm really seeing this more as the love that we provide ourselves and the love that we give to ourselves. For those of you who are coupled, for those of you who are married, there is definitely going to be a sort of awareness that comes forth. And this is probably honestly having a lot to do with the fact that on Monday, we did have the moon in Gemini make a conjunction to Venus in Gemini. So Venus does rule partnerships, and Gemini is certainly a sign. It's kind of like that twin flame energy. It's that mirroring energy. So it's the lovers in tarot. So with the moon and Venus coming together in Gemini, there certainly was this focus on the communication within our relationships, especially from a romantic sense. So a lot of you may have been feeling that, your path along with this person, you may have been probably thinking about it a lot and feeling about, how far you guys have come and just how much you have changed each other's lives, or how much even you have changed yourself simply by being in their presence. And I think a lot of times that's what happens. Like, it's not necessarily that people change us, it's that we choose to change based off of the frequencies and the vibrations that we are feeling or not feeling and resonating with. So interesting enough, Tuesday we have the card of the cosmic flower. The cosmic flower. The frequency of cosmic flower activates our remembrance of the place we call home, the core from which we pour our magnificence out into the world. I love how this card mentions home, and of course we have the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, and Cancer does rule the home. So this is saying that, all flowers come from a seed. And I think there are some times in our life where we feel like we have to run back to that seed. It's like, everyone wants to see the finished product. Everyone wants to see the petals, the colorations, the beautiful patterns. Everyone wants to see that aspect. But a lot of times people forget, and we forget that we all come from seeds. So sometimes we have to kind of rush, we have to go back to that place that we call home. We have to go back to that place that does give us the sense of security and comfort. And you don't want to just stay there forever, because then that holds you back from really going out into the world and experiencing things. But, I'm even kind of getting this feeling of like, just as a personal example for me, I'm a Sag rising and Mercury in the first. I've always wanted to go travel. I've always thought that, even my parents said when I was really, really young, they could just feel like, oh, he's going to travel. He's going to go off and explore the world. And I haven't really been to too many places, honestly. I mean, I've been to probably not even half of the states, and I've been on a couple of cruises, but I haven't really gone to too many places. And it's like, I think for the longest time, I was like defining my level of success based off of where I've traveled to. And I think sometimes we get caught up on that. I think sometimes we get caught up on defining our success, whether you travel like physically to like another state or to another country, or even just within your community. Sometimes it's okay to just stay at home. Sometimes it's okay to, not feel like we have to go out and do stuff. Not that you want to just be a hermit forever, and not that you don't want to, not that you shouldn't go out and travel and do all that sort of stuff, but there's no really right way to do this thing, when it comes to that. So it's like, I believe the cosmic flower on the day of this eclipse is super powerful in reminding us that in each of our core there is this deep remembrance of that which we come from, or that which exists, which is love. Like, love is real. Love exists. Love is really, I feel like the only thing that exists is just the way that we perceive that love that really begins to cause a lot of these issues and a lot of this strife in the world. Now, we have the card of empowerment. The card of empowerment afterwards for Wednesday. The frequency of empowerment supports our ability to show up fully and completely, uniting us with others in the deep trust that we are all connected through the same source. So I think it's amazing how we get the card of romantic love, then we get this flowering energy. So it's almost like we're focused on other people, then we're focused on ourselves, and then it's through focusing on ourselves and establishing that deeper connection to ourselves that we feel more empowered. And when we feel empowered, we do feel like we can give back to the world. We do feel like we can, actually solve a lot of the issues that we see in the world. But you're not really going to be able to help anybody and feel empowered unless you are empowered within yourself. So that's, I think, what's very important that we got Cosmic Flower before is because it is reminding us. You got eclipses, they're huge moments of fate in many ways, but also they are these huge moments of choice. So it's like, we are being given this great opportunity to really choose to feel good about who we are, to feel good about who we are, irregardless if we have been told that who we are doesn't fit their narrative. Because I'm not going to say the narrative, because everyone has their own narrative. Everyone has their own idea of what good is. And even if you don't fit that, doesn't mean that you're not good. But there's a lot of people in this world who have been conditioned, myself included, we've been conditioned away from, feeling, not necessarily from feeling good, but we've been conditioned away from our nature. And then when we start to embrace and express our nature, we're made to feel bad about it because it doesn't fit a certain narrative. And that really shows a lack of empowerment, And we've all had moments where we haven't felt empowered. But it's by stepping into our authentic self and stepping into that place that we really begin to shine, and we really begin to connect with the individuals that do sense that our empowerment and also want to help us spread that love and radiate that love outwards. It's sort of like the sense of like you really don't have to force yourself on anyone. You really don't have to force yourself on anyone. It's just sort of like, it's just automatic. It's like, what do you, it's like, I'm almost getting like this sense of like, what are you selling? And if you're like trying to always like push to sell, you got to realize that by simply being you, you kind of sell yourself. And what I mean by that is like, I'm not saying like you're selling like your soul or anything like that. Don't get that kind of idea. But it's like, how you have this saying like, oh, this thing sells itself. Like you don't really need to advertise for it. By coming into this empowerment, you don't really need to advertise who you are. It just works on its own. Like you are who you are, and people embrace it and accept it, and then you manifest. So that's kind of what Wednesday's about. On Thursday, we have the solar plexus chakra, and it's talking about the yellow flower of life, supporting our sense of self, our personal power, and our willpower, as well as our knowing of who we are and what our contribution is to the whole. 4th of July here in the States, and coming after the card of empowerment, this definitely is feeding off of that theme of like, within yourself, what is really important to you, and when you are expressing your truth and your authenticity, tapping into that space that really gets you going, that really gets you excited. And it's like, it's really speaking to like, irregardless of what's happening in the outside world, can you have a moment with yourself and go within yourself and be like, I can do this. Irregardless of these external stimuli and everything that's going on, I know that I have the capability to move through in a very powerful and beautiful way. We have belief for Friday. So it's like, this is saying that, we can act and do things and feel empowered and stuff, but there does need to be this element of belief. The frequency of belief supports our sense of self-worth based on our gifts and talents and a strong connection to source. So, you see, belief is not as blind as people like to think. Like true belief is really such a great confidence in our magical ability to manifest based off of our gifts and our talents that are natural, that are innate to who we are, and knowing that we are always connected to source and we can never be truly disconnected. Belief is something that is really not blind. It's not meant to not, belief isn't blind. It's actually, belief in many ways is based on facts. And I know some that may seem a little counterintuitive, but belief is really backed up, is really backed by, really just trusting who we are. Just trusting who we are. Saturday, we have the throat chakra. So this is going to be, some of you are going to be wanting to communicate your beliefs. Some of you are going to be wanting to communicate your empowerment. And a lot of, I really do feel like, by the weekend, we're really going to start to feel that eclipse. I don't think we're really going to feel it as much on Tuesday. I think it's going to be rather subtle. But coming into, in my, I said earlier in my report, Wednesday is a huge day. I feel Thursday is kind of a big day as well. Friday seems a little bit not so much, and Saturday, but then kind of picks up on Sunday. But, come this weekend, we really are going to be like, okay, where's my direction? Where am I going to go? And the throat chakra is like, what are you going to communicate? Are you going to communicate that you do believe in yourself? That you do believe that you are always connected? That you do believe in your ability to manifest? Whether it's things, whether it's people, What are you telling yourself? What are you telling yourself, beloved? What are you telling yourself? And let's not forget, the fact that we get the throat chakra card the day before Mercury goes retrograde is no freaking coincidence, because on Sunday, Mercury's going to go retrograde, and look what card we have. We have realization. We have realization. The frequency of realization supports the internal process of becoming aware of our heart-centered truth, as well as the external process of becoming our highest expression in this world. I'm going to say that again, heart-centered truth. Not mind-centered truth, not emotional-centered truth, but heart-centered truth. And that's why I feel like the cosmic flower energy is very, very important, because that's really what it reminds me of. It reminds me of, so like, I literally can see someone with like this flower bursting from their hearts and just pouring out this light into the world. And I feel like a lot of us, that's really what's going to be happening. I feel like, it's a Cancer new moon, so it's like it's a renewal of our emotions. It's a renewal of our emotional. It cut off there a little bit at the end, but yes, this is going to be a reestablishment of emotional integrity. So for the die, what I got is I got the 10th house. So yeah, I got the 10th house. We got Mars energy. We got Mars energy. And we got Taurus, which is interesting. We got Taurus, 10th house, Mars. So Mars likes to be in the 10th house. It's naturally exalted in the 10th house. So if this is the 10th house, that's going to make this actually, let's see, 11th house, Cancer is going to put, yeah, that's actually going to put Leo actually as the ascendant, which is very interesting for this. And it's also going to put this new moon in the 12th house. So in many ways, kind of like a big spiritual awakening and rekindling of our emotional nature. But Mars and Taurus in the 10th house, it does, while Mars likes, Mars would rather be in Scorpio, right? Then the one thing that saves this is the fact that Mars is in the 10th house where it's exalted. But what's happening here is that, we definitely want to take action and move things forward. Especially considering the fact that Mars is going into Leo and stuff like that too. But, we have to realize everything is a process. And Taurus is a slow builder. Taurus does not necessarily move too fast. But, what Taurus wants to do too is also build, the best possible, I'm really seeing like, they want to give the best possible value. That's the thing about Taurus. It's like, and I'm not saying that Capricorn doesn't want to give value, but Capricorn does rule business, and in a world today where big business seems to be such a big thing, and how really we can create things to last, but a lot of things aren't built to last. A lot of things are built to break down because it's not profitable to build things to last anymore. It's not profitable to build things to not break. It's more profitable to build something that's going to break in 2 to 3 years, so you have to buy it again. That's how these businesses grow. But Mars in the 10th house in Taurus is saying that if you want a better life, if you want to craft a better lifestyle, a day-to-day reality, and you really want to come into that dream life and manifest it, and if you want to, strive towards that legacy, it's not going to, you can't just build something and you can't build something and know that it's going to probably break in like 2 to 3 years. Because then it's just like, yeah, I guess as far as these businesses, it has the illusion of like, oh, we're making money and stuff like that, and we're growing and we're profiting. But how does that fare in the long run? How is that fair in the long run? It's like this isn't a time where you want to just build something that's going to break in 2 to 3 years. This is a time where you want to build something that's going to stand the test of time. And Mars and Taurus in the 10th house is about building things that are going to stand the test of time, not something that's going to just break like so soon, and it's going to have to cause you to keep, of course there's some standard maintenance that goes into this thing, obviously, but not breaking down to the point where it's like it's designed to not last that long, So that's the other thing about this energy is like, this is about building and creating a life that's not really, that you can't really see yourself, maybe in 10 years or so doing. This is like, this is about that. This is about, making choices right now that will set you up in the long run. Not something that is just going to give you this sort of quick fix energy, but, for like the next day or the next year or whatever like that. And don't get it twisted. Mars in the 10,000 Taurus is definitely a hustler, but it's not necessarily about trying to get the quick buck. It's trying to set yourself up so you can reap benefits long into your later years, and even for your children too, because we got to think, this Cancer energy, this is about the family and home, and in many ways children. So this is like, make choices that will set you up, won't only just benefit you, but will benefit your family and will benefit the collective. It's like I saw a post online where it was really awesome, but it pretty much was saying that what was it? It's like the person or the man who plants a tree knowing that they won't be able to bask in the shade of that tree is on the road to knowing the meaning of life. And I think that's so very, very powerful, because I think a lot of times what happens is that we feel this void of satisfaction in our life because, we're afraid to plant these magnificent trees, because we do want to be able to hang a hammock in between the trees and bask in the shade of these trees. And it's like, not all the trees that you plant, you're going to be able to bask in the shade of it, but you will be able to provide an incredible launch pad for those that come after you, and that's very important. It's very important, no matter what way you cut it. It's very important, and we can see, a lot of times, the people that we revere in history, they weren't necessarily revered while they were alive. Not a great majority of them weren't revered while they were alive. They were revered and acknowledged after they left, and sometimes, we want to be acknowledged while we're here, and we will to some degree, but, it seems like the people that really just kind of go down in history, as you would say, they probably felt like, they may have felt average while they were alive. They might have felt like they didn't really stand out that much, but that's because they were going for something greater, deeper, more fulfilling, more of this deeper essence, this deeper truth of the love that they are. And when expressing that love, it had a massive impact. So that is it for your reading. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I know it took me a while to get here. I wanted to get this posted Sunday evening, but it'll be up hopefully on the channel tonight, Monday evening, going into Tuesday. I hope that you all enjoy this. Hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I hope that you all have a wonderful eclipse. Definitely stay tuned because I will be making at least one video in the next 24 hours in regards to this eclipse. I'm either going to go live for it or I'm going to just make like a short, maybe 15-20 minute video talking a little bit more about the details of it. I'm probably going to do both, honestly, but we will see. And I love you all so much, and just remember that, you know, you got this. You got this, and you got this. Anyways, that is it. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And if you'd like a personal reading with me, beloved, you can follow the link in the description below to astrofenixx.com. And as always, my beautiful brothers and sisters, always remember to keep moving forward, to stay focused, and Yahoo! Smile often.